Are live. Hello, my name is Terry Thompson, along with my co-host here, Bonnie. This is Unbreakable Stories. Welcome, and tonight we're going to be talking about the power of storytelling. That's right, you have a story to tell that could literally change somebody's life right now, and that's what we're going to dive into. Bonnie, how's your Monday going?
Every time you say that, I still hesitate. Um, Today has been amazing. It's been a really great day. Started off this morning um, with I actually started off, dropping the boys off, but we had our clubhouse room this morning, and that was really great. We had a really great conversation over there. I feel like they're getting better and better. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but like we had some new friends over there, and it was just a really awesome, transparent, down to earth conversation. And I just love seeing when new people come in, especially. I mean, I love our family, don't get me wrong, but when new people come in and they stick around, it's really cool to just see how our family is expanding.
I love it. I actually had multiple conversations. So I hopped on Clubhouse again, like this afternoon while I was waiting in school and jumped on. I actually jumped into two different rooms. So I jumped in an Unbreakable Stories room and I was kind of sharing a couple of different things, had a couple of new people come up and made a couple of new friends. And then I hopped over into Michael's room and got to speak on his stage for, I don't know, probably about a good 10 or 15 minutes. And kind of give some value over there. He had probably about, I don't know, 10 or 12 people over in his room. So I was over there dropping some bombs over there, giving some value and talking about, what we're working on and how it actually kind of coincides with what he's working on. So he's kind of working on this little thing to where he wants to build this team of people from different countries that speak on stage that shares things from their country's perspective. They're talking about culture, talking about, all these different things from different countries. So he's kind of doing something similar, but he's taken kind of a country approach to it. And there's power in that story as well, too.
That's going to be interesting to watch because I know it's even, well, I can't speak for other countries because I haven't ever been to another one. But especially here in America, we have so many different cultures and different nationalities, and you know, melting pot is an almost an understatement. Uh, so yeah, I'm interested to see that. I don't know smaller countries or like how like the Polish country or or Poland, I should say. See, I'm
Mhm.
terrible. I'm terrible with geography. I am not the one. I'm getting better. I'm getting better, and I'm not going to pretend to be like a geography expert. But I meant to say places like Poland or Ireland. I know that supposedly, from a stereotypical standpoint, the cultures there are pretty solid, right? Whereas here in America, like you could be in California, and Northern California is different than Southern California, and somewhere in the middle. And even within Southern California, there's like they do things differently. And same with here in Pennsylvania. Like you've got backwoods, and then you've got two fairly major cities here that are also completely different. Like Philly and Pittsburgh are known for very, very different things. And so, yeah, I would be interested to see, or I am interested to see um, what that ends up looking like. That sounds unique and exciting. So good for
Yeah.
him.
Isn't there like a country of one? I mean, it may be a joke, but I swear I saw something in the news a while, like years ago, about like a country of one. Like this dude claimed his own country. He was like in his own military. He had like
He has
this.
an island. Yeah,
It was awesome, man. I was sitting here thinking, like, look, at the end of that, even a country of one has influence and impact. I'm just being honest. Even a
oh
country
yeah,
has influence and impact. I guarantee you that there's things from that perspective that that guy probably has some things to share. So
absolutely.
quick shout out. We have some friends. We have some family in the room. We have Peter. We have Ida. We have Janine. We have Deborah. And it is truly phenomenal to see each and every one of you. I'm going to share the link here in a little bit. That way we can go ahead and get some of our family up here on stage and join in on the conversation here very shortly. But tonight, that's exactly what we're doing. We're talking about We're talking about the power of storytelling. And, if you know anything about us here at Unbreakable Stories, we truly believe that your story matters. You have a story to tell that could motivate, inspire, encourage, and more importantly, empower other people, because if it's possible for you, it's possible for somebody else. And that's the power of telling a story, because it will literally give from your perspective what something looks like. Because we all have knowledge, we all have skills, but the number one thing that separates us is that experience. And we share that experience through our stories. And it is those stories that really matter. And we want to share your story. So we're about ready to publish a book here real soon. And we want your story to be within that book. So we're in the process of right now collecting great people just like you. And we want to share your story, and we want to get that out there within the world. And we got some really super cool things coming up here real soon. But I do want to turn it over to Bonnie, because I want to hear your perspective, and that'll give me an opportunity to kind of get some people in here and share out a couple of things as well too. But what are your thoughts about storytelling, the power of storytelling, and how your story really kind of evolved? Because I truly believe you have a phenomenal story, and to watch your story within the last year and a half, almost 2 years, it's been empowering. It's been inspiring, because I see how you've evolved. I've seen how you've impacted me, and I see how you impact other people as well too. I'm inspired by it. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Let you kind of take it away about your story, the power of storytelling, and how that's changed for you and how it's still continuing to evolve.
Thank you for that. It's funny that we're talking about my story specifically right now, just because so I invited somebody to my team 2 days ago, and he's working on a nonprofit effort. And so I was, of course, talking about Unbreakable Stories and the evolution of it, and shared our YouTube channel. Well, he went and watched my Unbreakable story, and I was like, "Oh God, you saw that?" was my reaction. I was like, "Oh, I've been meaning to update it, right?" Because when I recorded that, that was in 2019 when I recorded that. I had it scripted in that, like, I wrote my own story, obviously, but I had it like on my screen. My younger kids were babies at this point. This was like what, 3 years ago. Well, I guess they weren't both babies, but my 9-year-old was 6, and my 6-year-old was not even 3 yet. Well, he's going to be 6 that month. He wasn't even 3. And so the only time I could get that was pure quiet to record my story was at 12:30 at night. And so one night, on a whim, not feeling ready. In fact, I think I was wearing not this exact shirt, but the same color shirt. I've since made a new one because that one got beat up. It's getting kind of ratty. But and I was like, okay. I was like, I realized it was quiet. I was like listening, because all of my kids lived at home at that point, and I blew it up really big on my laptop, and I was reading. Okay. Because I knew, like, for me, I was trying to gather people's stories for what was called the Unbreakable campaign. And I'm like, I can't ask people for their stories if I haven't told my own. And so I sat down that night and told my story, read my story, if you will, and hurried up and threw up the video, like, as is. Like, that was kind of my process at that time, was just do this thing. And I've said multiple times over the past couple of, few years, I want to redo that. I want to redo that. I want to do that. And I haven't done it. And I think there's a certain level of charm and in watching that version of me telling my story, especially people who know me now. And when they learn, it's kind of like a disconnect. But I've gotten a lot of practice since then. And I've also, my God, so much has happened in the past 3 years. It's just incredible to even think of. In fact, it was about this time of year when I put that up. So it's been just about exactly 3 years. So, anyways, it's incredible to look back and see how much has happened. in the last 3 years. And the direction that Unbreakable took, because most people that have been here know that it was put on pause, and then Evan brought you and I together, and it went in. Sorry, you can hear the guys in the run up and down the steps. I'm home alone with them right now, but it when I was able to relate, it's a big part of my story is learning how to let go of control. And I'm sure I talk about that probably in the original version of that. And I've talked about it quite a bit since then, in different interviews and talks that you and I have had and on Clubhouse. Excuse me for a second.
I totally get it. I remember when Bonnie and I first connected, absolutely 100%. We were really connected in the beginning from Evan Carmichael. And I'm truly grateful for that opportunity. It's one of those moments in time to where you really don't know what you don't know until you know it. And still to this day, we still don't know a lot of different things. We're still discovering, we're still conversating, we're still building the plane while it's in flight, so to speak. And man, so far it's been an absolutely amazing flight. And I just want to say, thank you to Evan Carmichael for connecting us. Thank you to the Unbreakable family for being a part of our journey and a part of the things that we're doing each and every single day. We definitely cannot do any of this without each and every one of you here. So, Peter, Deborah, Mary, Ida, each and every one of you matter. You all shared your Unbreakable story, and it's one of those things to where it's a part of the story. It's a part of the family. It's a part of the thing that we're trying to do each and every single day. So when we tell everybody that, hey, we're truly grateful for you to be a part of the Unbreakable family, we truly mean that. You're a part of the Unbreakable family, and it really does mean a whole lot to us, because when people see what it is that we have going on here within Unbreakable Stories, they want to be a part of that. They want to feel like they belong. And it's one of those things to where I will always tell people this right here. When you inspire people to belong, you will empower them to become. You will empower them to become something bigger than they thought were possible. But until they really are a part of something that's bigger than themselves, they really don't have the courage. They really don't have the confidence. And that's one of the things that we've been truly blessed with instilling within our community is confidence, courage to speak up and speak out, and the confidence that your story does matter. And as people have gotten more comfortable, more confident, they're speaking up, they're speaking out. I'm telling you, it's absolutely amazing. And sharing their stories and speaking on different stages and showing up here, man, I'm blessed with it, and I know Bonnie is gleaming from ear to ear. I can just see it in her, and hopefully she's got that sorted out. But we do have a friend backstage I want to bring up here very shortly. We have Peter waiting backstage. We are going to bring Peter up here very shortly, but I want to turn it back over to Bonnie real quick. Hopefully you got things sorted out there.
Yeah, it's just typical little brother, big brother stuff. Um, so yeah, and I'm actually kind of glad, because I felt like that was getting a little too drawn out. The point of all this is the guy that joined my team went and saw this video and came back, and his impression, like what he got from that video, whereas my reaction was like, oh my god, you watched that, like that was terrible. His reaction, he felt like it was inspirational, and although the form wasn't great, and I probably talked a little too much, and there's missing, I'm going to add in the next chapter basically of it. None of that mattered to him, and he was very appreciative of the fact that I actually had the courage to kind of sit down, do the thing as is, not perfect, and just put it up there. And it gave me almost like a renewed sense of how important the story is versus the delivery sometimes, right? Or the packaging or whatnot. And so, yes, stories are extremely important. I mean, I knew how important they were, even when I wasn't able to express it so well back then, which is why I pulled out, I guess all the stops, if you will, and just went ahead and did mine, feeling very uncomfortable, feeling very not ready, feeling very scripted. because I knew that once I did mine, I was going to be able to help other people share theirs and kind of have that ripple effect and that impact that we were looking for. And so, yeah, plus had I not done that, we would not be here today. You know what I mean? Like there would be nothing that was a start,
Mhm.
that was like the first step.
Yeah.
And I couldn't very well be like, "Yo, I did this thing, Terry, but I have nothing to show you that says that I did this thing." Because he would have been like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's super inspiring. Bye, see you later." You know what I mean? So yeah,
You
it
know what
all
the
went
power
well.
of that is, though? Here's where the power of that is that oftentimes when you're in the grind, you don't see the blind. I mean that. Oftentimes when you're now there's a rhyme for you. I need to turn that into a song. Oftentimes when
Yay.
you're in the grind, you don't see the blind. What's the blind though? The blind is the blind spot. Oftentimes it's the things that you don't see because you're focused. You got your left and right blinders on, and you're fine tuned into the grind. You're focused on the grind, but you don't always see those things. So when I first met you, I saw something, especially when I saw Unbreakable. I didn't know what it was. I just saw something and I'm sitting here like, oh my goodness, this is absolutely amazing. This is the one thing, and I'm going to be a little selfish here. This is the one thing that I didn't have. And I'm not saying that I was jealous or envious. I was like, I have to be a part of this. This is something that must happen because it's something that I didn't have. At the moment in time, Evan asked me, he goes, Terry, dude, like you're all over the place. You're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing like what is holding you back? Why are you not as successful as you could be? And I'm sitting here and I was like, dude, I don't really have that one thing. I don't have that one word. I don't have, and to this day, I'm still kind of all over the place on like, what is my one word? I have a few, I've adopted a few. And when I ran across Unbreakable and I saw something in that I did not see within myself, but I did because you see, I grew up in a military family and it was a broken family. We were all over the place. My mom was married 4 times. 3 of those men were military men. We were all over the place. We were constantly broken. We were constantly separated. We were constantly apart. And for me, that broke me each and every time that we traveled to a new place. I was the new guy. So when you watch my Unbreakable story, you will see the story of the new guy because everywhere that I went, I was the new guy. I was always starting all over, even though that I was broken in pieces, but everywhere I was, there I was. And I took a piece of that with me. And that was powerful right there. And it was one of the things that I've been able to adopt, an absolutely amazing word that you thought of and that you had. And I was like, I have to be a part of this. I must be a part of this. This has to live, breathe, grow, because you know what? It's oftentimes when you're in the grind that you don't see the blind. And I saw something in that I saw within myself and that I saw in others, because in a world that is broken, you are unbreakable.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And that exactly, not exactly, because everybody has come to this kind of differently, but that is a perfect example of what I was going for. When I came up with the word unbreakable, like I didn't create it or invent it, but like when that word struck me, I had already gone through Evan's one word process, and my one word was spirit. But in order to come to my one word, I was a lot like you. I had like a list of like 20 words, and I kept narrowing it down there. I was like in the thesaurus and the dictionary and comparing them and cross, and like, okay, well, this word kind of still means this word. And so it all came down to spirit. And really, for me, it was about unbreakable spirit. But I didn't have the unbreakable piece of that kind of in there at first. And it wasn't until after, like at that point, I went through the sickest I had been since I was diagnosed in 2011. And I came out of that on the other side and wanted to make all these changes. And was like, man, there's so many people who have been through different things. And the original idea for the project was to make T-shirts for each person with their one word on it. And I spent that like maybe 2 or 3 days of that idea, and I was like, nope, I am not going down that road again, because I have lots of experience with doing now custom design work isn't as tedious as it was back then for me. But I was like, I'm not trying to make a new design file on it. And this is part of this was selfish. I'm not trying to make a new design file every time somebody comes to me with an idea for a new word that they want to wear, right? And I was like, so what is the one word that describes all of us that have overcome trauma, overcome some kind of, severe adversity, overcome a childhood of, broken promises and disappointments, and sometimes moving all over the country and meeting different people and not sticking in one place and feeling out of place everywhere you go. Everybody has a different experience of something that, where life tried to break them. And so that word that brought us all together, ironically, is unbreakable. And I feel like the more we gather people, and the more we build this family and we build this community, the more people we're, going to be able to reach, because through the power of stories, each of us sharing, you and I can experience the exact same thing. And you've talked about this many times, but each of us, we could be in the same room experiencing the exact same event and walk away with something completely different, with a completely different meaning of that. And you and I have even had examples of that just in some of our clubhouse rooms. You're like, I thought it was blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I thought it was blah, blah, blah. It's like, we're in the same place, theoretically in the same room, and come away with a different experience. And so all of us collectively putting these stories out is going to help different people in different ways that are now going through what we have already gone through and come out on the other side of. And I think the most beautiful thing about this is, we've got 10 people that could have almost identical stories, but the way they got through it and what they're doing now to help others and whatnot could be completely different. And you're going to have 5 or 10 new people coming in going, oh, okay, these 9 people can't help me. That doesn't relate to me. But this one person over here that went through what I'm going through now, that person can help me. And so, yeah, that's maybe not the most eloquent way to describe this, but it's like a repository of roadmaps for people who are going through some tough stuff.
Awesome. I love it. Well, we have a couple of friends that are waiting backstage. I'm going to go ahead and bring them up here now. So I see Peter waiting. As soon as I see his camera come on, I'll bring him on here. I see LA waiting. So I'm going to go ahead and bring LA right on up here. And we're going to go ahead and get these friends up here. Peter, LA, welcome to the show. How you guys doing, man?
Hello. Great. Nice to see you tonight.
Awesome, man. And so, LA, you had a very interesting question here, and I want to pop this question up here on the screen. And it goes, what are your thoughts on learning to appreciate your own story or stories and having the confidence to make the stories matter? Look, here's the thing. Every story matters because it is from that knowledge, from the skills, from that experience that we are able to speak it into existence that shows other people what something looks like. What works for me, it may work for you. And I have full confidence that if something actually worked for me, it may work for that next person, but they'll never know what those things are if I don't ever share that story. So I learned that a long time ago from a leadership perspective. I was in the military for 24 years and I always shared something each and every day. So I would stand in front of my soldiers and I would share something, whatever that something was, whether it was, just a funny story or whether it was just, hey, here's something. I always looked at it from like a training perspective. And whenever I'm training, I'm teaching. When I'm teaching, people are observing, they're learning, they're listening. So I learned a long time ago that stories is really that glue and it's that bridge that really kind of bridges that gap between where people are struggling and where you can take them. And the best way to do that, other than, just classic instruction, point A to point B to point Z instruction, is like, you will do this, number 1, number 2, number 10. But I understood that here's where the power of stories comes into play. The power of stories comes into play like this right here. If I went through a whole list of things of, hey, if you want to achieve success, you're going to do number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. That's great. That may be an action item for somebody to take, but they won't really have any context behind it. They won't have any context behind it. So when I share that story, It's a matter of a few different things. You can make a story that's believable, or you can make a story that's unbelievable, and yet it'll still inspire somebody to take complete action because, once again, it's the story, it's the content, it's the context, it's the interpretation, and it's the perspective that matters. So, once again, I learned a long time ago to appreciate not only my story, but the ability to tell stories that can, as we say, motivate, inspire, encourage, and empower because when you tell a story, it's going to do one of those four things. It's going to motivate, inspire, encourage, or empower. But it also could inform people as well too. So when you look at stories from a standpoint of informing, I'm informing you, and this is how I'm going to do that through the story, through a story. It could also entertain people as well too. So when you stand up front and you entertain and tell jokes and do all these silly things that we tend to do sometimes, it also entertains. So I also learned how to appreciate the value of not only information but entertainment as well too within a story. So my story, what is my story? Well, my story is everything. It's what matters to me. And if it matters to me, guess what? It could matter to someone else. Will it? I don't know, but it's my job to tell that. It's my job to get that out there into the world so that a way somebody can hear it. They can be like, I kind of like that guy, Terry Thompson, man. He's kind of cool, kind of neat a little bit. And his story really kind of resonates with me. You know what? I'm going to do what he says. And from that point, what's going to happen is that person's going to get a result. They're going to take the action, get the result because I inspired that action. And from that result, they're going to get their feedback. And their feedback, they'll be able to figure out what went right, what needs improvement, modify, tweak, or change, continue taking action. You've heard me say this before. It's all a part of that, but it's the story that really resonates. It's the story that really is like, man, I like that. It's memorable because it's those moments that become memories that last forever. And for me, that's the power of storytelling. Hopefully that.
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, this is your stories, like Bunny's stories and your stories and Peter's. All the stories make me come back in this community. So it makes a difference. It helps people connect with each other. And I think we need never to forget that.
I love that. Bonnie, what are your thoughts? Do you have any thoughts on Ali's question?
Yeah, I've been in a picking apart words mode again lately for some reason. I think that because of the words manifest, and I think Janine popped in here, but we were talking about this earlier. The word manifestation. Am I by feedback?
A little bit. A little bit of feedback.
Just a little bit, yeah.
I don't know why.
You may have your YouTube
I don't have
window
YouTube
open, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, that was weird.
Sure.
Can you maybe want mute? Is that better? A little bit. Anyways,
I think so, yeah.
I don't know. Regardless,
It
I
actually
have
is better.
okay. Yeah, I don't know. I've been. Anyways, I was talking earlier about the word manifest and how manifestation has become this huge buzzword lately. That and like affirmations is another one, and there was another one that Janine and I were talking about too that I've been kind of just looking into and just really trying to understand because sometimes I know, especially here in America and the English language, a word starts out meaning one thing and then it gets over time just gets twisted to mean something else. So, anyways, I'm looking at the word appreciate, and appreciate means to when something increases in value. And so, when we appreciate something, we're usually adding something to help it increase in value. And the same with the opposite would be depreciate. I mean, any of those of us who have been in an accounting class know what depreciation is. So I think you have to recognize that you have a story, right? That you have a story to tell, and that your story is potentially it should be at least important to you, right? First and foremost, and by me feeling that there's value in my story, and then also that what I almost feel is more important, that by telling my story, I'm going to add value to somebody else's life. that's what gives me the confidence. Or sometimes, like in the beginning, like when I did that first version, like the fake confidence or the sleep deprivation version of confidence, where I was like, if I don't do this now, it's never going to happen. And so it was kind of like feel the fear and do the thing anyway moment for me. So I think for me, it's the story has to matter in order for you to have some bit of confidence. It has to matter to you for you to have some bit of confidence in sharing it in the first place, and then understanding that you're telling your story not to just hear yourself speak, but to add value to somebody else's life. And so I hope that made some sense, because I'm honestly kind of working as I'm reading your question. I'm like working through this in my head, that in real time here, so it's not super smooth.
I'm going to put this puzzle piece over here. I'm going to neatly tuck that puzzle piece over
That's
there.
how I feel right now. It's like, what do I think about that? Because I've never been asked that question before. And so I want to be, thoughtful in my answer to make sure I am adding value with my
You touched
answer.
on something right there that I really kind of want to bring light to, and that's the power of believing your own story. Believe me when I tell you that I have had some people that have literally believed their own story and their own hype all the way up to the point that I am the greatest thing since sliced bread. I believe that, and there's nobody else that can take that away. I've been in situations to where I've had people believe that 1 + 1 is 3. It is in fact 1 + 1 is 3, and I believe it, and you can't tell me anything different. It's like every day is Monday. I believe that. And it's one of those things that whenever you express yourself to people in a certain way and you believe your own hype, you will believe that every day is Monday.
Sorry, I'm like, because every time you say that in the morning, I'm like, wait a minute. I do a double take. It's like, wait, no. I can't wait till we actually do our first Clubhouse on Monday, so I can be like, yes, Terry, yes, it is. It's finally Monday. But you're right. I didn't think that's where you were going to go with that, and the believing there. I have also witnessed, unfortunately, and Deborah may be familiar, and even LA, and both, all you guys who are teachers may be somewhat experienced in this, is that some people get themselves in situations. I was one of them, where I was in a situation where somebody was using gaslighting. Now, I didn't even know gaslighting was a thing back when this was happening to me, but through some stuff that I was going through, this person literally convinced me that basically the things that I knew in my heart to be true that had happened didn't actually happen. And you get into a situation where you start, like, forget eroding your confidence. Like, at that point, your confidence is gone. You start believing that you're going crazy. Like when you've got somebody that's super confident in that their version of what happened is fact, and you're going, wait a minute, and that can get yourself in a sticky situation. But yeah, you're right. There are people that even when facts are placed in front of them, 1 + 1 = 3. And those are the kinds of conversations that I've learned, really in the past few years. There are some people that I just, at a certain point, I won't converse with. Like, I'm not going to argue with you. Have an awesome day. I mean, we've had some of these conversations in Clubhouse where I'm just like, don't eat. I'm in the back channel sending Terry goofy emojis, like, just don't let this dude get to you. Just let him go. Just let it go. Just let it go.
That's the power of thank you. That's the power of thank you. Believe me,
Yeah.
I have stopped more conversations simply by saying thank you than to engage in that gaslighting.
No, I've noticed the evolution and appreciate it so much, because now I'm just chill about it. I'm not worried about it anymore. But in the beginning, there were definitely some moments where I'm like, oh God, what kind of argument is about to take place? So yeah, anyways. Isn't it
You know,
amazing?
believe it or not, on Clubhouse, and I'll use that as an example. Believe it or not, on Clubhouse, I think I've only literally been absolute, and I'm not going to go into rooms or names or anything like that. I'm going to avoid all of that. But I've
Yeah,
literally only been disrespected like maybe 3 times in the
yeah,
2 years of being on Clubhouse. And it's one of those things that I understood a long time ago. It says more about them than it does about me. And I thank them for the opportunity to have that experience. I can't argue with that. It's like, okay, from your experience, there it is. Thank you for that. Thank you for telling me everything that I need to know about you. I'm going to, like Mall Cop says, I'm going to move along.
yeah, yeah. It's a great lesson too when you're like, yeah, thank you. When you can do that, yeah, yeah. And it's a little, not to totally sidetrack our conversation, it's a little bit easier to do on Clubhouse because I am not, as everybody I think here knows already, like I'm not good at sugarcoating. I don't BS people, but my face sometimes like says everything. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like really trying hard to hold it together. So Clubhouse makes that a little bit easier because they can't see your face at that point in time.
You know what? So I know Bonnie knows the answer. Everybody else here might also know the answer as well too. What is the most expressive body part?
I'll keep quiet until.
Here come I can see the smoke coming out of like everyone's ears right here. So Deborah's close. It's not the eyes. It's the eyebrows.
Mm-hmm.
The eyebrows. It's the absolute eyebrows. The eyebrows are the most expressive body part. That's why I wear big glasses. I shave my eyebrows and I don't ever let you see them. So I understood a long time ago that the eyebrows are the most expressive body part. If you really want to know what someone's thinking, look at their eyebrows because you will tell if they're lost, confused, excited, all the above, or whatever the case may be. I guarantee it. So you can sit here and I've seen people do that, but you know what? Your eyebrows, Bonnie, are still giving it away. So no matter how much you try to hide that right there, I can see in your eyebrows.
Oh yeah, I know.
You know where I learned that from? And it's body language. So years ago, I thought that it would be absolutely amazing to take a course on body language. Because I'm always investing in myself. I'm always investing in my own knowledge, my own skills, my own education. And when I saw body language as something to take, I was like, I'm going to take that. That sounds interesting. And the things that I learned within that, really, there was just one big takeaway. And it was the eyebrows are the most expressive body part. And that's all I needed to know. Here, take my money. I'm going to leave.
That's hilarious.
But believe it or not, people speak volumes with their entire body language. And they tell a story that if you're not familiar with it, and I guarantee you that Deborah has something to say here in a minute about that. And I'm barking right up her alley with this because she knows where I'm going with this, because I know that she's an interpreter on that as well too. So it's one of those things to where when you can understand the story that body language is telling, man, that is powerful. Deborah, welcome to the show. I want to hear your thoughts on the power of body language and how it tells a great story.
Hello, friends. Oh, indeed. Yes. Especially when I'm interpreting, like even right now, I've got my head tilted and I'm using inflection with my body. It is so powerful. When you're interpreting music, you can take the listener, the viewer, on a ride. You take them through the story, and you do that with all inflection, whether it's within your voice or within your body. When you can move them along and they can absolutely feel what's going on, the story that's being shared, the excitement that's just in the air, the inflection, and especially with the body. I mean, I could sit here all day and be, oh my gosh, so excited. Or I can just really just show you and bring you into my world with that body language. Yeah, this is just not going to cut it. No, absolutely not. Open and welcome. And that's another part to the answer, or, what I would give as an answer to the other question. When you have no doubt, one, in yourself, two, in your story, What is there to not be confident on? That is your story. That is your thing. You own it. And just like your body and your inflection, you own it and bring people into that. And the world's going to love you. Thank you
You'd
for
be,
letting me go there.
I love it, Deborah. And I remember when you shared that with me about, body language. And it's interesting that you talk about inflection. And I want to get on that here very shortly about inflection, because I truly believe there's something to that, especially with body language. But here's the thing. You would be surprised how many people I throw off with a smile, because you have somebody who's just serious and they're like, they want to lay into you and dig into you. And I'm just sitting here like smiling at them. And I've literally confused the crap out of people just sitting there smiling like, yep, you keep on bringing that. I got something for that whenever you're done, kind of a thing. And it's one of those things to where I've literally thrown people off with the power of a smile. Like, look, I don't care what you say to me. I don't care what you do. It's not going to hurt me. So I'll sit there and I'll smile. And that's body language. It tells a story. And that story is powerful because it lets the other person know you're not going to bother me. You're not going to get under my skin. You're not going to gaslight. You're not going to do that thing. And believe me, people want you to believe their story. I don't want to dive down this rabbit hole, but I'm going to touch on a very key word, and I don't want to dive down the rabbit hole. So let's please do not dive down the rabbit hole. That's narcissism. It's one of those things to where a narcissist will literally try to tell you a story through certain things, but a smile will totally destroy that guy. You know what I'm saying? There are certain ways in which you can do that. That's the power of thank you. I said, thank you. I appreciate you. Dude, you're awesome. You are absolutely right. I can't argue with you, because you don't have to go down that rabbit hole. You don't have to do those certain things. So it's really important. But when you talk about body language, that's where learning how to control your body language can control the story, can control the narrative, can control the outcome. Because the moment that somebody sees that they got you with that body language, they're going to dig in and they're going to just continue to attack. And that right there can put you in a vulnerable state. It truly can. It can put you in an absolutely vulnerable state. But how do you, and this is a question for the panel. So as I'm working my way through that conversation, how do you not give away your power through body language and not give somebody else the power to really use that story against you? Because body language is a story and it will give you away. So I'm curious, what does the panel have in reference to thoughts about giving away your power through body language?
I'm going to address that right away, because that's something, and I'm not going down a rabbit hole either, but that's something I learned to do with one of my former, let's call them partners, because by me responding through body language to certain phrases, statements, whatever, it would perpetuate, even by me not wanting to, like me even trying to be like defending myself, for example, would set this person off. And so I learned how to be, what do they call that? Like stoic, just stone face and just, okay, gotcha. Like super. And where this came in really handy, and anybody who has teenagers or deals with teenagers like LA, it came in really handy when my older kids were teenagers and would come to tell me things that most parents would, but flip shit about. They could come and tell me because they could trust that I wasn't going to instantly react to whatever they had to say. And so they weren't afraid to come and tell me, if they were in trouble or if something went wrong or whatever. Because even though my insides were like screaming or like on fire and I'm going, oh my God, what am I going to do with this situation? On the inside, the outside was like, all right, okay. Anything else you need to tell me? And then I was like, let me sit down. And I'm like, I'm honest. Like, let me sit down. Let me absorb this. Let me figure this out. And we'll sit down and we'll have a conversation about it. I'm not going to say I was 100%. I definitely got into lots of arguments, especially with my daughter, and I used to butt heads all the time. But when it was really important, when the really important things, they would come to me, it did come in handy. And so for me, what was born kind of out of like, I guess, a survival technique for a short period of my life, I found use for that later on in life, being able to compose myself. And really, for me, it was a lot of practice. It was just like I could almost feel the energy ahead of time. Like, okay, this is going to be one of those conversations. And I like brace myself essentially, and be able to very outwardly present as calm. Since then, I have learned how to just be calm. So that's worked a lot more in my favor. But to answer your question, depending on the situation, it's a learned skill or a learned behavior. It can be, for sure.
Awesome. What are the additional thoughts, LA? Peter, Deborah?
Yeah, I also agree with Bonnie, what Bonnie said, that there is sometimes I have the two sons, so sometimes will have argument with them. So what I'm trying to do is really need to listen to them first. So listen what they want, because sometimes our perspective and their perspective is different. So now they also coming here. So that really need to listen it, and then we only take the action for it. Yeah.
Awesome. Peter, thank you for sharing. LA, Deborah, any additional thoughts on that?
I know that what happens sometimes is people observe how you deal with things as well. So sometimes people will come to you if they believe that they can trust in your response, because often they just want to see, either they want to test you, that happens. Sometimes they just want to say, okay, I can trust that person is like a grounded person, regardless of what happens there, even though you might be freaking out inside. There's something that I can bounce off the idea. And I learned that with my kids and my students. Sometimes I can share stories of an event, something happened to a person. It could be a real person or fictitious, and then say, well, this happened, this person reacted that way, this is what happened. And then I asked them, so what do you think? Do you think it was the best way of doing that? So conversation has happened in many ways just by observing people around us and in our society. And that's how I think my kids are willing to come and see me and just talk about different situation, and all kind of ideas come out of the blue. But it's part of trusting each other, that everybody's stories is important and different, and accept the journey of different people.
I love that, and it brings a couple of different things to mind. So I think I might have one question for Alay and one question for Peter on that one. So, Alay, when it comes down to telling stories, so you're a teacher, you have students, and so does Peter. I believe Peter, you're also a teacher, correct? Exactly. And so I have two different questions, two different types of questions. So have you ever experienced telling a story for the sake of telling a story within a class and noticed that the story was triggering to someone? And how did you stop that story or shift or change the story in order to really kind of shift the energy or the atmosphere?
Mhm. I would say that often you have to. Okay, I think body language makes a big difference. Earlier, we were talking about giving power away and so on. When you're part of a group and you are discussing, if you pay attention to the audience, so you don't have the audience there for you, but there's a communication and connection with the audience. If someone is turned off or doesn't like the story, something I've learned in the last maybe 10 years is that when I come in my class, I share all kind of stories and give the options to my students, saying, if the story is a bit too much, or you just want to go to get up, walk a little bit, go for a walk and come back. They've learned that sometimes if they feel tired, stressed, anxious, or something is bothering them, they can just go for a little walk and come back in. And it's like a clue. And then I can chat with them afterwards. And so you can give the audience an out, and then also clues so that conversations can happen after. So at home, for example, when I get grumpy, I get upset, I just go for a walk. My kids know that when I go for a walk, I don't need anybody to talk to me. But when I come back, then they will ask how things are, and they know that I just dealt with whatever. I come back, and my kids are asking me questions. Same. So these are ways that we can work things through.
I love it. So I was just reading some of the private chat here in the back and everything. I get like that. But in front of me, here's the thing that y'all don't see. Like right here in front of me, I actually, all of you guys are in 4K on a big 43-inch screen TV right here in front of me. So I have it's like everything's right here in front of my face. I love it, man. So anyway, maybe Bonnie can get her a big monitor and see it, everything. But I love that. But Peter, I have a question for you. So speaking of, like teaching Japanese and you have students that may struggle or may not struggle with certain things. Have you ever heard of the concept of concrete experience? Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay, so here's what concrete experience is. Concrete experiences is when you share your experience. It's a concrete experience. It's an experience that you have, and that when you share that, it shows other people. Once again, that's where you always hear me talk about, if it's possible for me, it's possible for you. I get that concept or that idea from the concrete experience, and it's a part of the experiential learning model. So if you look up on, if you Google experiential learning model, ELM, experiential learning model, the number one step or the first step in the experiential learning model is concrete experience. Here's the reason why that's important. The reason why concrete experience is important is because, number one, it gets classroom involvement. It's like, hey, class, I want you to share an experience that you have within the subject matter or the topic of whatever that topic is, whatever the subject is, whatever the lesson is, whatever the learning outcome is. I want to know what you know. Share your story, share your concrete experience. And what happens is people begin to talk, and you as the instructor, you begin to listen. And so do the other students within the class, because as the speaker is speaking, everyone is listening and everyone is taking notes. And what you're doing is you're discovering what people are familiar with, what people know. And as you're observing, people are taking notes. I know this person doesn't know anything about that. I know this person doesn't know anything about that. What's happening is you're reading the body language of people, and you're understanding and you're interpreting the story of the feedback you're getting from other people. From one person sharing a concrete experience, you're observing as an instructor, as you're walking around the classroom, you're seeing that person's taking notes. They wasn't familiar with that. That person's taking a note. That person wasn't familiar with that. This person is sharing something, which means that's what that person is familiar with. That's their experience. Here's where you as the instructor comes in, and you bridge the gap with what was not said, with what was taken down as notes and what was not said. What that does is that minimizes the amount of teaching that you actually have to do, because you are familiar with everybody's concrete experience. You know what their knowledge is, their skills is, their concrete experience, and you can bridge the gap with what was not said. It cuts down on how much teaching you have to do.
Yeah. That yes, I learned the new thing, concrete experience. Then for this term, that what I normally learn, that for example, the language, Japanese language, you need to really to speak up, that Terry always say to speak up, and then you can speak up. So I will give them to do some certain the exercise. Then when they will speak up, they share their story in the sentence. Then I can catch up the certain word that they can be improving, can be more speaking correctly in Japanese. So I think will be more on, like, for me is listening to them. Then I can do more correction or do more the exercise for them to improve their language.
Yeah, and that's where role playing comes into play, because
Yeah,
when you give a scenario or a role playing, it's like, all right, class, here's the scenario. I am a worker behind a counter at a restaurant. I want you to come through an order, and then what happens is I want you to take the order. I want you to give the order. I want you to receive the order. And then as you're doing all these different role plays, you're able to listen, you're able to observe, you're able to see the strengths, you're able to identify the areas that need improvement. I used to say weaknesses, but now I say areas that need improvement. It gives a more positive vibe to it. So, and then that's where you're interjecting. You're being like, okay, here's an area where you can improve. Here's where you did well. Here's where, and that right there becomes a part of the story. And that becomes a part of what you're teaching, because all by paying attention, by observing, and that becomes the story that you tell within the class that ultimately becomes the teaching point. Hopefully that was helpful.
No, I do agree with you because sometimes common experiences can help too. For in a language class, for example, I teach French. That's great, but I teach French to an English-speaking audience, and my English is not the best. So every so often, I ask them, okay, how do we say something? And sometimes they have no idea. So what happened is they have an opportunity to help me improve my French. In some ways, um, how can there's a connection. I mentioned connection earlier, and that makes a difference. Same thing in science. If you do a lab, the fact that everything works well is beautiful, but the more you fail and you mess up, the more it's fun, the more you can learn, and the more you have stories to tell. And that's a way to connect. And I don't know if Peter has the same in his classroom, where when you share similar experiences, either a conversation or an activity, that builds the relationships, and it's wonderful.
Yeah,
I-
definitely.
I love that, man. And I was grinning from ear to ear because the only French word that I know how to say, I think, is maybe we, or something like that. But I would walk around telling people I got to take a wicked yes.
I was laughing and I wasn't laughing at you. I literally had this conversation with my littlest, who just started kindergarten, and he's in that phase right now where he's saying things like he's showing me all his school papers. He's super excited, which is amazing. But he's like, I cutted this, and I was like, you cut it, and he was like, so he's learning past tense, but he's, I guess, hearing, and this is no, like, I'm not discrediting anybody else's kids, but he must be picking this up at school because he wasn't talking like this 2 weeks ago, and now he is, where he's hearing other kids say things like cut it, and that's the only example I could think of. I drawed, and I'm saying, you drew, like, I don't go, no, that's wrong. Like, I've never done that with my kids, luckily. But the point is I said, I'm explaining, he finally just looks at me, and I said, look, your vocabulary, his vocabulary in general is off the charts. And I forget what he came into the kitchen. I don't know if Janine's still on here, but I was laughing about that. But the reason I'm laughing is because you said French, and I was like, look, dude, I was like, you're going to be taking English for the rest of your life. I was like, English is just really complicated, and I don't have an easy way to explain it to you. He goes, well, Mom, I guess it's just time for me to go learn French then, isn't it? So that's why I started laughing, because it was like just so random. I'm sorry. It's so funny to me that my 5.5-year-old decided he's going to learn French because English is just too difficult.
And we have to play with language. Like today, I was talking to people, to coaches. So they're coaching field hockey. And we had a discussion, and I couldn't figure out how to say it. So I was calling it grass hockey. And I was talking, and everybody had a grin, but nobody told me grass hockey was the wrong term. So after the conversation, they said, just by the way, it is field hockey. So everybody had to laugh about this. But you have to think that it's funny and take it with a grain of salt too. So
I love that. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're about ready to close things down here, and we're about ready to Bonnie's favorite word. We're about ready to dive into the after party, and and that's where it gets really lit. So if you think that you enjoy this conversation, you definitely want to join the after party. And so we're going to go ahead and close things down. Here's one of the things that I like to do before we get ready to close down here. So I have a couple of things here. Number one, which is the unbreakable printable, the unbreakable, I am unbreakable printout right here. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to our website, and print this I am unbreakable printout right here. There may be some technical difficulties because I'm gonna be honest with you. Right before we went live, I was trying to get onto the site, and I realized that GoDaddy is having some technical difficulties. So there was like several pages I couldn't get to. There was like I was getting errors. I was getting a lot of different things. So I got a message from GoDaddy saying that they're experiencing some maintenance server issues, kind of a thing. So you might have some issues getting to our site. But look, here's what I want you to do. When you get the opportunity, I want you to go to unbreakablestories.com/share. And I want you to print this out right here, the I am unbreakable printout. And if I can get somebody to take a screenshot, that would be absolutely amazing. All right. And send it to me. So I want you to go to unbreakablestories.com/share. And I want you to print this out. And then I want you to share it across social media to let the world know that you are unbreakable. Look, follow us on social media. Once you get to that page, you'll see all of our social media right there. Print it out, take a picture, tag us, use the hashtag #MyUnbreakableStory. We'll add your picture to our website, share it across social media, and that'll be some really good exposure for you. And it lets us know that you share your support for what we're doing here at Unbreakable Stories. It would mean a lot to us. Also, we want to share your story. That's right. We want to share your story. So Deborah recently shared her story, and I love it. It's a truly phenomenal story. It's a truly powerful story. And she reminded us, you know, if you know anything about me, you know that every day is Monday. But I love what Deborah had to say. And when she shared her story, she said, "Today is the day." I was like, you damn right today is the day, because every freaking day is Monday. You know, it's one of those things that I loved it. So when Deborah hit that, I jumped. I would like did a freaking cheetah flip down the hallway, and I was ready to like rock and roll. I didn't do a cheetah flip, by the way. But anyway, it was one of those things to where I got excited about that, because Deborah, you are absolutely correct. Every day's Monday, but you know what? Today is the day. I love that. When I heard you say that and share that, I was inspired by that. And I just want to let you know that right here in front of everybody, that I was really inspired by that story, and that today is the day. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and go around the corner. We're going to start off with Deborah, since I was just talking about her. So I want to hear your final thoughts. What are your final thoughts about the power of sharing your story, or anything that we talked about here today? What are your final thoughts? We'll go Deborah, Peter, Alay, Bonnie, and then I'll close the show out. Deborah, over to you.
Thank you. This was so inspiring and so much fun. I mean, my cheeks hurt because I've smiled and I've laughed, and it is just a sense of joy. And absolutely, today's the day. Today's the day. I love you guys. Thank you so much.
Awesome, Deborah. Thank you. Peter, over to you.
Yeah, I just want to touch that. Just how I say that when we want to have the confidence, sometimes we want to share our success story, our win of the story. It's easier to have the confidence to share. But when we had the fear of the story, or we have the sometimes of the doubt of ourselves, we had to share our story. But in Japanese term, is they call broken pottery. Yeah, broken pottery. That means you in Japanese word called kinzuki. So you put up all the broken part together, then with the goal, then you can have the more confident, and then the more story to tell others. So like the Coach Mary told, after the broken piece all put together, then you can empower every person. So thank you. Back to you, Terry.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Peter. Alay, over to you. What are your final thoughts?
My final thought is to believe in your own story so you can make a difference in someone's life. Thank you, Terry and Bonnie.
Awesome, Alay. Thank you very much, Bonnie. What are your final thoughts?
I'm going to repeat, at the risk of offending somebody, what I said this morning. And that's, if you're not sharing your story, you're being selfish, because you can be helping millions of people and potentially inspiring, you know, that person that's going to do something that's going to have a major, major impact on the world. And so that ripple effect, it's real, and it's just so important, right? So yeah, I'm sticking to that story. You're being selfish if you're not sharing yours. You can be mad at me if you want to be.
I love it. And in the lyrics of the great classic country song, "That's my story and I'm sticking to it." I love it, man. So, man, truly powerful conversation here tonight. We've had some amazing friends up here, family. We've had some amazing family up here on stage here, sharing their unbreakable story, sharing their thoughts, their knowledge, their skills, their experience, their wisdom about the power of storytelling. And it goes deep. I mean, we kind of went off on a couple of different things here. You know, who would have thought that body language was a part of storytelling? And it truly is, because imagine, for people who cannot communicate, you know, speak vocally, that is their way to tell stories, through the art of body language. And it truly is an art, and it truly is a gift that gives people a way to communicate. Look, here's the thing: different people communicate different things differently. And body language is a part of that. Me talking the way that I do is a part of that. The way that Alay and the way that Peter and the way that Bonnie does, it's empowering, because look, we all communicate different things differently. And that's the power of sharing your story. That's the power of telling your story. Because when you do that, it really resonates with people where they are. Because when I share my story, I share my story from a place of where I've been. But you know what? I'm not there no more. I'm not there. I can live in that past. I can stay in that past. But you know what? That's the person that I want to motivate. That's the person I want to inspire. That's the person I want to encourage. That's the person I want to empower, is the person that was me from 5 years ago. And when I share my story from 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, it meets that person that's just like me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, struggling with that exact same thing that I struggled with. And they are there struggling with the exact same thing. So when you share your story, you're sharing your struggles, you're sharing your roadblocks, you're sharing the absolute beautiful mess that is you. But you know what? There's also a lot of other beautiful messes that are out there within the world as well too. There's another beautiful mess out there in the world that is just like Deborah. There is another beautiful mess that is out there that is just like Bonnie, Peter, Alay, myself. Man, there are beautiful messes all over the place. And I want you to share the beautiful mess. I want you to connect with the beautiful mess. But you know what? Even though that's not where you are, that's also not where you're going. So I want you to share that from a perspective of hope, from a perspective of belief, from a perspective of, you know what? I know where I'm going because I know where I've been, but I must share that story to where I can take people on that journey to a place that they never thought was possible. That's the power of storytelling. That's the power of showing up, showing out, speaking up, speaking out. That right there is the power of storytelling. Look, I want you to know this one right here. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm helping somebody up, whether that be through story, whether it be through content, whether it be through just lending a helping hand, an ear, a shoulder to cry on, or whatever the case may be. If you see me looking down, it's because I am helping somebody else up. If you see me looking up, it is because I am thanking God for every opportunity that He has provided for me, because without God, nothing is possible. But with God, all things are possible. And I truly believe that. But you know what? Every time I look around, I look to my left, I look to my right, I see Bonnie, I see Alay, I see Deborah, I see Peter, I see friends just like Mary, I see friends just like Amma, I see friends just like Janine, people who joined us here. And I also received some messages over on Facebook as well too, because we're streaming on YouTube and 2 different Facebook pages as well too. So I get to see the messages that you guys don't see. So when I see friends and family all around me like that, it reminds me that I am surrounded by great people. You see, because if you want to be great, you surround yourself with even greater people. And I want to tell each and every one of you that I am truly thankful, truly blessed that you are great, that you are unbreakable, because it is you, your story, that matters the most. I'm proud of each and every one of you. I'm truly grateful to be a part of this family. Man, I love you guys. My name is Terry Thompson. I am the host of Unbreakable Stories. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us here tonight. Man, it was a truly powerful conversation. We will see you next time. We are streaming on Clubhouse 24/7. We are having live conversations Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We go live right here on YouTube and Facebook every Friday night at 7 p.m. Head on over to our website, unbreakablestories.com. Show your support. Let us know what your story is, because you have a story to share. You are unbreakable. And we want to share that story out to the world so that we can motivate, inspire, encourage, and more importantly, empower people through your story. You are unbreakable. Thank you very much for watching.